So in my hands, I have what is called the Jesus Storybook Bible. Shh, please stop interrupting me. So I'm going to read a couple stories from this related to the holidays that were celebrated this weekend. And then when I finish that, I'm going to share some of my story and how the two of them intersect. And then I'm going to tell you guys how your stories, your lives, can intersect with the same 2/3 stories. And what's great is we planned ahead this time. So all of the pages I'm going to read are going to be on the screen behind me. So you don't have to try to squint to see what's going on the pages. They're going to be right up here on the screen. So we're going to jump in by asking a few questions. And I want you to think about these questions as I read these stories. Question 1, what is Easter? I don't want any answers, just think about it. What is Easter? Question 2, what is Good Friday? Y'all were off school because it was Good Friday, but why is it Good Friday? What does it mean? Shh, just think about it. What does that mean? And question number 3, why are those 2 days important? So I'm going to jump right in to reading this story. The first one is titled, The Sun Stops Shining. And I have a clicker in my pocket, so Mr. Reed doesn't need to do everything for me. So the sun stops shining. It begins. So you're a king, are you? The Roman soldiers jeered. Then you'll need a crown and a robe. They gave Jesus a crown made out of thorns and put a purple robe on him and pretended to bow down to him. Your Majesty, they said. Then they whipped him and spat on him. They didn't understand that this was the Prince of Life, the King of heaven and earth who had come to rescue them. The soldiers made him a sign, our King, and nailed it to a wooden cross. They walked up a hill outside the city. Jesus carried the cross on his back. Jesus had never done anything wrong, but they were going to kill him the way criminals were killed. They nailed Jesus to the cross. Father, forgive them, Jesus gasped. They don't understand what they're doing. You say you've come to rescue us, the people shouted, but you can't even rescue yourself. But they were wrong. Jesus could have rescued himself. A legion of angels would have flown to his side if he'd called. If you are really the Son of God, you could just climb down off that cross, they said. And of course, they were right. Jesus could have just climbed down. Actually, he could have just said a word and made it all stop. Like when he had healed that little girl and stilled the storm and fed 5,000 people. But Jesus stayed. You see, they didn't understand. It wasn't the nails that kept Jesus there. It was love. Papa, Jesus cried, frantically searching the sky. Papa, where are you? Don't leave me. And for the first time, and the last, when he spoke, nothing happened, just a horrible, endless silence. God didn't answer. He turned away from his boy. Tears rolled down Jesus' face, the face of the one who would wipe away every tear from every eye. Even though it was midday, a dreadful darkness covered the face of the world. The sun could not shine, the earth trembled and quaked, the great mountains shook, rocks split in two until it seemed that the whole world would break, that creation itself would tear apart. The full force of the storm of God's fierce anger at sin was coming down on his own Son instead of his people. It was the only way God could destroy sin and not destroy his children whose hearts were filled with sin. Then Jesus shouted out in a loud voice, "It is finished." And it was. He had done it. Jesus had rescued the whole world. Father, Jesus cried, I give you my life. and with a great sigh, he let himself die. Strange clouds and shadows filled the sky, purple, orange, black, like a bruise. Jesus' friends gently carried Jesus. They laid Jesus in a new tomb carved out of rock. How could Jesus die? What had gone wrong? What did it mean? They didn't know anything anymore, except they did know their hearts were breaking. That's the end of Jesus, the leaders said. But just to be sure, they sent strong soldiers to guard the tomb. They hauled a huge stone in front of the door to the tomb so that no one could get in or out. God's wonderful surprise. Jesus' friends were sad. They could never see their best friend again. How could this happen? Wasn't Jesus the rescuer? The king God had promised? It wasn't supposed to end like this. Yes, but whoever said anything about the end? Just before sunrise, on the third day, God sent an earthquake and an angel from heaven. When the guards saw the angel, they fell down with fright. The angel rolled the huge stone away, sat on top of it, and waited. At the first glimmer of dawn, Mary Magdalene and other women headed to the tomb to wash Jesus' body. The early morning sun slanted through the ancient olive trees, drops of dew glittering on leaves and grass, little tears everywhere. The friends walked quietly along the hilly path through the olive groves until they reached the tomb and immediately noticed something odd. It was open. They peered through the opening into the dark tomb. But wait! Jesus' body was gone. And something else. A shining man was there with clothes made from lightning. Don't be scared, the angel said. But they couldn't help it. They screamed anyway. The angel asked him, "What are you doing here? This is a tomb, and tombs are for dead people." The women couldn't speak. Jesus isn't dead anymore, he said. He's alive again. And their hearts leapt, and the angel laughed with such gladness that they felt for a moment as if they had woken from a nightmare. The other women rushed home, but Mary stayed behind. How could it be true? Jesus was definitely dead. How could he be alive? Just then, Mary heard someone else in the garden. Perhaps it's the gardener, she thought. He'll know where Jesus' body is. I don't know where Jesus is, Mary said urgently. I can't find him. But it was all right. Jesus knew where she was, and he had found her. Mary! Only one person said her name like that. She could hear her heart thumping. She turned around. She could just make out a figure. She shaded her eyes to see and thought she was dreaming. But she wasn't dreaming. She was seeing. Jesus! Mary fell to the ground. Sudden tears filled her eyes and great sobs shook her whole body. And all she wanted in that moment was to cling to Jesus and never let him go. You'll be able to hold on to me later, Mary, Jesus said gently, and always be close to me. But now, go and tell the others that I'm alive. Mary ran and ran all the way to the city. She had never run so fast or so far in all her life. She felt she could have run forever. She didn't even feel like her feet touched the ground. The sun seemed to be dancing and gleaming and bounding across the sky, racing with her and shining brighter than she could ever remember in the clear, fresh air. And it seemed to her that morning, as she ran, almost as if the whole world had been made new. Almost as if the whole world was singing for joy. The trees, tiny sounds in the grass, the birds, her heart. Was God really making everything sad come untrue? Was he making even death come untrue? She couldn't wait to tell Jesus' friends. They won't believe it, she laughed. She was right, of course. So those are all the stories I'm going to read from that for now. If y'all really like that, maybe I'll do it again in the future. But hold while I disconnect from my mic stand. Okay, so to review, those stories are important because they tell us about Easter and Good Friday. The first story is Good Friday. Good Friday is the day that Jesus remembers the day that Jesus died on the cross for us. And it is good in two ways. One, it is good, it is beneficial, it is helpful that we now can have a relationship with God our Father. Because without Jesus, our sin gets in the way. But it also means holy. It's a holy day because it's the most important day in human history after the resurrection, which happened 3 days later. So Easter, which is also sometimes called Resurrection Sunday, Sunday is the day that Jesus came back to life. And that is more important than the day that he died. Because he not only died to pay for your sin, but he rose again to free you from death forever. Because of that, you can have a right relationship with Jesus.